I was born May 3rd, 1933. I was born after a depression. My parents were not rich parents. They weren't poor parents, but it was just very good parents. I grew up in a happy home. And as I think about the things that are taking place now in our life, being shuttered in our own homes, socially distant from other people, but able to communicate through all of the various means of telephone and TV and computers and the things that we have. We need to take a good look and realize that we are very, very fortunate people. But it's also time to realize that we're in trouble. We've been in trouble as a nation for a long time. We just really haven't woken up to think about it. It's time to return to the basic principles of life. The commands of God that are basic to us are simply love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. These are important to us. Every once in a while we get a wake-up call, and I hope that as we go through this pandemic that we will all realize that life itself is important and nobody really stands alone. Sing them over again to me, wonderful words of life. Let me more of their beauty see, wonderful words of life. Words of life and beauty, teach me faith and duty. Beautiful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words of life. There are lessons that we find in Scripture, and they're important to us. These scriptures I want to read with you today and contemplate and talk about are important. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. We may think that life is not going to change as a result of what we're going through, but life will change, and it has to change. When we realize that we are dependent, we are totally dependent on life going on in a certain way. We need to take care of the water ways, and we need to take care of the food supply, and we need to take care of the way that we view life ourselves as individuals, and find out what we ourselves can do about it that will help somebody else live and actually enjoy a better life than perhaps we have. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. These words were written by the Apostle John on the Isle of Patmos. I'm not sure just exactly when they were written. Some people say sometime between 78 years after Christ to 70 years after Christ, and others say 94 years after Christ. I don't know the truth of that. Nobody really knows for absolute certain. But we do know that the words that he spoke apply and have applied. So when John says, then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, I realized that God has always been with us, and he has been a source of knowledge for us because his Spirit is live and well in people who are really very loyal to him. And we ourselves need to become loyal to God and listen to the words that he has given to us. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God." And there's a passage of scripture that says that God is not worshipped with men's hands, nor does he dwell in temples made with hands. The truth of the matter is that God's Spirit lies and lives within every single individual that has been born on this earth long before we ever got here, and continues to live in the heart and the mind and the soul of every person who will dwell on this earth for as long as this earth lasts. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God." The reality of that statement shows itself as we turn to God in prayer and in thoughts about what we as individuals and what I personally as an individual can do to help somebody else. "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." As a nation and as a people, we have to realize right now that the way we have behaved in the past cannot continue. We have been a divided nation. This world we live in has been a divided world. It's time to face the true reality of life and come back and recognize that all of us are going to have to bow down and become obedient to the various laws of the universe itself. We must live by faith, and we must search for and find the truth and rely upon that truth now and for the rest of our various lives. Then he who sat on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." And he said to me, "Write, for these words are true and faithful." Yes, but God cannot do it all for us as individuals now. The statement, "I make all things new," are a continuing action upon the part of God and will continue to be that way for as long as you and I live on this earth. But we need to write these hard words not on paper, but in our hearts and in our minds, and we need to become true and are faithful to ourselves and to those people who surround us. Words are of no value whatsoever unless we are obedient to our own words that really are true and faithful. And he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts." We are surrounded by water. But the salt water of the sea is not something that we can drink. The fresh water of rivers and streams that flow from them are important to us. But we have not been diligent we have not taken care of our land as we should, and many of our streams and our waters are polluted. But they're not nearly as polluted as our minds have become, because we have turned away from God and relied upon our own wisdom and denied that God is faithful and true. But take a good look at the universe itself. If we are not obedient to the laws of the universe, the laws that we know are faithful and true, we can't survive. Survival is to change a way of life that has disintegrated into fights and falsehoods and lies. We need to turn to, seek, and find the truth. The greatest source of truth that I know of is Scripture itself. And it's time to take the time to learn and to listen to Scripture. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Isn't that wonderful? I had a great father. I loved him dearly. When he passed away, it was a significant thing that occurred in my life. I'll always remember that time in the hospital when I stood by the hospital bed after my father died. But as I looked at him, I noticed that he had a great, wonderful smile on his face. And I knew at that time that my father was with his God, and God was treating him as his very own son and taking him home to live with him. What a wonderful blessing. Rise, the Blessed One gives to all wonderful words of life. Sinner, listen to the loving call, wonderful words of life. Oh, so freely given, wooing us to heaven. Beautiful words, wonderful words of life.